A San Diego tradition snuffed out, the questions about gender that caused the city to cancel this firefighter camp. And a change of command, handshakes and hugs as San Diego's police chief steps down.
They feed you here, they take care of you here, they make sure nobody bullies you.
Finding healing and a fresh start under a big gray dome. What's next for people living in a homeless tent shelter in Barrio Logan? KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Susan Murphy in for Ebony Monet. After 35 years with the San Diego Police Department, Chief Shelley Zimmerman is officially retired.
Chief of Police Shelley Zimmerman, as she retires from 35 years of exceptional service.
A change of command ceremony was held this afternoon at department headquarters. Zimmerman became San Diego's first female police chief in 2014. She is stepping down due to reaching the limit of her deferred retirement plan. David Nislight, who was confirmed this week as the city's next police chief, will take over tomorrow. A firefighting camp designed to give girls exposure to a job title not traditionally held by women is taking heat for allegedly excluding boys. KPBS' Jade Hindman has more.
The San Diego Fire Department has been around for 126 years, but only in the last 41 have women been allowed to work in the department, and that change only happened because the federal government said they have to stop discriminating. Fast forward to today, and you'll find a gender gap with only 4% of San Diego's firefighters being women. The department has tried to fix that with one outreach program geared towards girls, but a local attorney says all genders matter and that his client felt discriminated against. This is the Girls Empowerment Camp held by the Fire Rescue Foundation. During the annual two-day camp, teenage girls learn rescue techniques and what it's like to be a firefighter. But just days before this year's camp, the program has been extinguished.
I go, oh no, why would someone do that? It just seems such a great idea to have girls in this kind of field, understanding that the future is female. Every single occupation that has been traditionally closed is going to open up.
Murtaza Baksamusa was looking forward to his 15-year-old daughter Sakina exploring the occupation of firefighter through the camp.
I wanted it to open more possible career paths for me, such as firefighting, which aren't usually stereotypically a woman's place. Yeah.
But local attorney Al Rava says it's a man's place, too. He sent a letter to the city on behalf of his client, Rich Allison. In short, the letter says his client felt discriminated against when he registered his 17-year-old son for the camp and didn't hear back from organizers. He says his client was deterred from registering his son because the camp was marketed for girls. The Fire Rescue Foundation says while they've never had boys attend the camp, they have always been allowed. In fact, they say the online registration doesn't ask for gender. Despite that, the city says their resources can no longer be used for the camp due to its gender-specific nature. That means no fire department, no firefighter camp, a disappointment to this father who says he wants his daughters to dream past the history of gender barriers.
My daughters, they believe in it. They believe that they can do anything they want, and I want to give them the opportunity.
And I asked if the participants would still be interested in the camp if boys were invited too. They said yes. However, without the city's resources, camp organizers say the program may be over for good. Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
A sell-off on Wall Street as President Trump promises to charge foreign companies a premium for importing steel and aluminum to the U.S. President Trump is expected to impose a 25% tariff on steel and 10% on aluminum. As a result, the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped more than 400 points, or about 1.5%. There were similar drops for the S&P 500 and NASDAQ. Formal action by the administration is expected next week. Financial experts say China, Europe, Canada, and Mexico would be most impacted. A retaliation could ultimately affect consumer prices. A forum in Oceanside tomorrow is designed to test the viability of each Democratic candidate running for Republican Congressman Darrell Issa's seat. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says California's primary election system no longer guarantees that a member of each political party will go on to fight in November.
Tomorrow's Viability Forum is an attempt to narrow the field, perhaps even encourage some of the 5 Democrats running for Issa's congressional seat to drop out for the good of the party. Tara Lawson-Remer of the Flip the 49th campaign says the candidates are all strong, but voters need to focus their support on the most viable candidates or risk being shut out in what she calls the jungle primary.
But we also just know the math. And the jungle primary system in California makes it quite likely that if you have too many on one side of the ticket, the other side of the ticket can just get 2 Republicans through June, even though the majority of voters prefer the Democratic side.
The 49th Congressional District, which covers the North County coastline and stretches into Orange County, has slightly more registered Republicans than Democrats. But the voters supported Clinton in 2016, and almost 80,000 voters declined to state a party preference. In 2010, Californians voted for a top 2 primary system. Instead of 1 candidate per party winning the right to compete in November, the 2 candidates with the most votes win. It was championed by then-Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger to try to reduce the bitter partisan divide. But in practice, it means the party with the most candidates risks losing by splitting the votes. The 49th Congressional District was considered one of the most vulnerable after incumbent Republican Darrell Issa almost lost his seat in 2016. However, since Issa decided not to run again, a dozen candidates have jumped into the race, and party leaders are now working to narrow the field. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
Last month's school shooting in Florida may inspire tougher gun laws in California. A state senator from LA County is amending a current gun reform bill to require all gun buyers to be 21 or older. Currently, rifles and shotguns can be purchased by 18-year-olds. Another proposal is to make it illegal to buy more than 1 firearm in a 30-day period. Exceptions would be granted for certain fields, including law enforcement, private security, and the film industry. Nearly 20 years ago, their high school became synonymous with school shootings. Now, 2 former Columbine high school students are working to find solutions for a new generation still dealing with this problem. Associated Press reporter Peter Banda has the story.
We want our children safe, not more guns. Knock this crap off.
Emotional calls have flooded Patrick Neville's voicemail ever since he proposed allowing teachers to carry concealed weapons in the classroom. He first pushed the idea in 2014, long before President Donald Trump called for arming teachers in the wake of the Parkland, Florida school shooting. Neville speaks not just as a Republican lawmaker.
Jefferson County 911. Yes, I am a teacher at Columbine High School. There is a student here with a gun.
But as a survivor of the Columbine school shooting that killed 13 people in 1999. Those students are now adults, many who were inspired to take action and serve others. Neville joined the Army and served in Iraq before entering politics, eventually becoming the Colorado House Minority Leader.
Speak up. Be loud. Don't let us forget, us adults, forget that we are responsible for this.
Samantha Haviland was 16 years old when 2 students opened fire at the school. Today, she's the director of counseling for Denver Public Schools.
19 years ago when Columbine happened, we didn't understand it. We were shocked by it. We didn't think this was a thing. So we thought we were outliers. We thought it wouldn't happen again, or it would never happen to this extent.
And yet it did, over and over again. Both Haviland and Neville say they've been encouraged watching the next generation demand action after the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. But they know the solutions aren't easy.
So we're going to have to sit down and have much longer conversations where we drop our ideologies to have conversations around solutions.
When we declare our schools to be gun-free zones, it just puts our students in far more danger.
Neville recently attended the meeting at the White House where he saw his idea about arming teachers get a boost from the president, even though Democrats have repeatedly blocked his proposal at the Colorado State Capitol.
We have to find a way to harden those targets so that our students aren't sitting ducks.
While their approaches differ, the survivors of a mass shooting know they are all unified in their common goal of preventing another school shooting. Peter Banda, Associated Press, Denver.
Uber is expanding into the healthcare industry by working directly with providers to give rides to patients. The new service, called Uber Health, is being rolled out nationally after several months of testing. Medical providers book the rides for medical appointments and receive the bill from Uber. Details are sent via text message to patients. Access to a smartphone is not required. Uber competitor Lyft also offers a similar service. Research into concussions often does not involve women, including women veterans. A group is working with the VA to ask women to posthumously donate their brains to future studies. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
In the last decade, the Veterans Health Administration has been talking to vets about head injuries, like in this 2015 video.
When I got medevaced out, I had been hit 8 different times. Traumatic brain injury wasn't anything that was really talked about at that time.
The emphasis has often been on men, and so has much of the research. Catherine Snedeker with Pink Concussion says women react differently.
They concuss at a higher rate. They have greater symptoms, more severe symptoms, and also, on average, a longer recovery. We don't know if that longer recovery is because we're not treating women correctly.
When men are used as the benchmark, women can often end up feeling that something's wrong, even when they're recovering normally.
Where it's been over 2 to 3 months and they're still having symptoms, and they really start blaming themselves, like, I should be better by now.
Nearly all of the brains donated to major brain banks are from men, often athletes and veterans. Pink Concussions is partnering with the VA to encourage women to donate their brains for research. That includes agreeing to sign up early and providing a detailed history. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, turmoil in the White House. New questions around Jared Kushner's business ties as the president's longest-serving aide leaves. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
There's a new place for people to get outdoors and stay active in Mira Mesa. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer and Councilmember Chris Cate attended a ribbon-cutting event this morning at Mira Mesa Community Park. The new multi-use athletic fields can accommodate several sports. It will be used by the Mira Mesa Little League, which begins a new season this weekend. But before then, expect some rain. Justin Povic has details on another storm system heading our way.
It's quiet now, but we do have some changing weather conditions as we go throughout the next 24 to 48 hours. Poway out toward La Jolla on the quiet side. We're going to be talking about the showers eventually sliding south toward even Chula Vista. Going to be talking about some rain again as we close out the week and venture into the weekend. Right now, it's feet and feet and feet of snow along Interstate 80 from Truckee toward Donner Summit. Also some soaking showers from the Bay Area, Point South, even out toward Point Conception. The rain's going to be coming into play later on, but for us, just some thickening clouds as the overnight low temperatures dip down into the upper 40s and the lower 50s in the metro. As we expand out, notice Poway down to 42. North and west of Oceanside, though, I think there can be some late night showers, and that will stretch its way further north and west toward Long Beach. And we continue to see that progression further and further south here into Friday. Cool pocket of air, so snow levels are low. San Bernardino Mountain's going to have some snowfall before this event wraps up, and even out toward Mount Laguna could see a couple of inches of snow. For tomorrow, though, you'll need the rain gear. Notice the normal number, 65 in San Diego. We hit that right on the button. Oceanside, 64. Again, Alpine topping off at 55 degrees. Chula Vista into the mid-40s. We venture into the weekend. Notice that dip in the jet stream, so we'll keep conditions a little bit on the unsettled side once again. Again, in terms of rainfall amounts here, generally speaking, about 1/10 of an inch to 2/10 of an inch towards San Diego. Further eastbound, it could be locally over 1/4 of an inch of rain. So out toward the coast, notice how the sunshine returns. We start to see the temperatures climbing here Monday into Tuesday. Look at that, up close to 70 degrees. And inland, mid-70s here, but we're talking about wet rides here as you're out and about Friday and perhaps into the start of the weekend. Mountainous terrain, again, we're going to be topping off into the 30s with some snow showers. Again, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, the sunshine again will be back with us. Desert locations into the mid-70s. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Povic. Back to you, Susan.
and liftoff of the Atlas V and NOAA's GOES, a highly sophisticated weather-watching eye in the sky, to join its twin in providing better forecasts and saving lives.
Today's launch in Florida will bring a major upgrade to how we track our weather. That NASA rocket was carrying a state-of-the-art satellite. An earlier version has been monitoring the East Coast. This one will keep an eye on the Pacific and deliver crisp images of storm systems and wildfires. Today marks 3 months since the opening of the city of San Diego's first large tent shelter. Hundreds of homeless people living under the Big Gray Dome in Barrio Logan are finding healing and a fresh start. But some may end up living there longer than expected.
I feel like Willy Wonka. Follow me.
It's just after breakfast. Joseph Leemaster strolls down a long center aisle inside the sprawling homeless tent. He passes row after row of metal-framed bunk beds draped in a medley of blankets. Some of his 323 new roommates and their 100 companion pets are still sleeping. Leemaster, like most here, comes from years of surviving on the streets, lugging belongings in a cart, struggling with mental illness and despair. The majority of his bunkmates are over the age of 50. A dozen are college students. 60 are veterans. A few have full-time jobs. Leemaster cuts left and a quick right through a maze of mostly friendly faces and arrives near the back canvas wall to his bottom bunk. Bed number 194. It's about the first time in 20 years the 49-year-old has had the comfort of a mattress and a daily shower.
They feed you here. They take care of you here. They make sure nobody bullies you.
There's also on-site medical care, addiction treatment, and counseling. And life's about to get even better for Leemaster, who grew up in foster care. He's moving into permanent supportive housing.
I believe it's like winning the lottery. Because I've been out there for a long time.
Leemaster is one of the lucky ones. Of the 720 people who have stayed at the shelter in the 3 months since it opened, just 42 have moved into permanent housing.
When I first heard about it, I did the happy dance, and it made me feel like crying, to tell the truth.
His chronic homelessness and disabilities put him near the top of a very long list.
These are the folks that have been the most infirm, the most at risk, the most vulnerable.
Alpha Project CEO Bob McElroy manages the tent, officially called a bridge shelter. It's one of 3 funded by the city of San Diego.
You know, our people live here in peace and in dignity and are so grateful to be inside.
The idea is to provide a 3 to 4 month gateway for a majority of people to get into permanent housing, the agreed upon solution to ending homelessness. The subsidized living spaces are usually single rooms or converted motel units with on-site services running about $800 to $1,000 a month.
This is another heartbreaker because everybody's asking, their expectations to get housed. Everyone here. They can't wait. Bob, when am I going to get my house? Bob, when am I going to get my house?
It's a question he says he can't answer.
There isn't enough, and everybody knows that. So we have to be flexible enough to say that the expectation is that we're not going to be able to house everyone. So what do we do next?
Whenever possible, people are reunited with family. Those with enough income receive temporary rental assistance, but people without income who are on the list for permanent housing may have an extended stay in the tent.
They want something better, but this is way better than the bricks, and so everybody's kind of in a holding pattern.
McElroy says, unfortunately, there are also many who will likely never escape homelessness.
And there's a whole segment of this population that are so shot out. They need assisted living, which does not exist. They're so mentally ill.
But he says his team never gives up trying to help.
It's cool to be able to sit down with some of these people and actually see where they're coming from and what they're going through.
Housing navigator Kyle Biggs works with the team inside the tent to strategically match people to service providers or landlords when a permanent unit does become available.
But we also don't want to just place them in housing and have it not work out. We don't want to enter that revolving door cycle.
Clients with histories of evictions, bad credit, or a prior criminal offense can be a challenge.
Everybody goes through tough times. So it's it's really cool to be able to give a hand up and help out.
He works with 10 people at a time in the long and rigorous process.
Hope is huge. I try to keep them motivated. I try to keep them busy.
Joseph Leemaster is having a hard time realizing he'll soon have a place of his own.
I know it's going to happen, but I don't think I'll believe it until I can be there on the floor and spinning around in circles.
He plans to do everything he can to make it his entry door to a new beginning. The other two bridge shelters, one for veterans in the Midway District and one for families in the East Village, are also working to find people permanent housing. As of January 31st, 3 people have received keys to their own place. California made a name for itself with its liberal reputation, but that's a relatively recent phenomenon. As part of our statewide collaboration looking at the California Dream, Ben Bradford from Capital Public Radio took a look at how the politics of the dream changed from purple to the deepest blue. KPBS Evening Edition anchor Ebony Monet chatted with Ben about his report.
In your report, you point out that California's policies haven't always been so liberal. You speak specifically to Prop 187, which denied services to immigrants who entered into the U.S. illegally. It was deemed unconstitutional 20 years ago, but what were the long-term effects of that policy?
Yeah, I mean, Prop 187 is really looked at by political analysts as a turning point for when the state went from kind of purple to really deep blue. And it's because it was a galvanizing force. I mean, Proposition 187 would have banned immigrants in the country without legal documentation from receiving most state services, and that includes even attending public school for children. So it passed, and it was closely tied to Governor Pete Wilson's re-election campaign. He was facing a tough re-election against Kathleen Brown, who was the state treasurer and the sister of Governor Jerry Brown. And he tied himself to Proposition 187. Republicans tied themselves to this very controversial ballot initiative that led to protests and really galvanized the Latino population in the state, which is today the largest racial or ethnic demographic in California.
So how has the voting trends of the Latino population impacted California politics?
Yeah, so I mean, first you have to start with just the sheer number and the sheer of the Latino population in California, right? So back in 1970, there were 3 million Latinos, and as of the 2010 census, that number is now 14 million. And while the voter turnout rate for Latino voters and also following along similar lines, Asian voters is not as high as it is for white voters or for black voters, that is a just huge number of new voices in the state. And up before 1994, when Proposition 187 went on the ballot, Latinos tended to lean Democrat, but it was much more mixed how they would vote. As a matter of fact, 50% of Latinos who voted in 1990 voted for Governor Pete Wilson. But after 1994, after Proposition 187, we saw a real shift where just overwhelmingly Latino voters side with the Democratic Party. And I think it wasn't just Proposition 187, there were further ballot measures as well. There was a ballot measure to ban affirmative action, another one to require English language only education in schools, both of which passed. And there was a rhetoric adopted by the Republican Party that Latinos and Asians really saw as anti-immigrant and to some degree anti-them.
And we're looking into this based upon the California Dream. How does California's politics impact the pursuit of the California Dream, i.e. schools, obtaining home ownership?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about all of it. You think about political parties put out their platforms, and their platforms are essentially visions for what the state should look like. What kind of health care should the state be providing? You know, what kind of support for schools? $15 minimum wage in California. Extensions of Medi-Cal, trying to extend health care further for immigrants who are not citizens or who don't have legal documentation. across a broad spectrum, right? What are our housing policies? The new affordable housing packages in California, cap and trade, the state's climate change policies, all of these things that influence our daily lives. What the tax base is here. What do we charge people to live here? All of those things are dependent on who our state lawmakers are and who our local lawmakers are. And so that's, if that were to switch, you would see a major difference.
Very interesting. Ben Bradford with Capital Public Radio. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
This story is part of a statewide California Dream collaboration. You can read more about Ben's report at kpbs.org/dream. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Morning Edition, get ready to drop a beat. We'll hear about You God and the Wu-Tang Clan story. And on Midday Edition, the city of Chula Vista approves an ordinance that would allow more cannabis businesses than any other region in the county. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great evening.